Hello, snowboarders of the internet. I'm your host, Avran LeFeber, and this is Top 5s, the only weekly Top 5 show in snowboarding when we want it to be. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the top 5 swallowtails for 2024-2025. That's right, you want to go smash pow? You want a deep swallowtail? You want to spray some white gravy out the back? We got you covered. Number 5, the Bataleon Surfer. This board got a huge overhaul this year. Between the swallowtail getting that powder channel, like hover cover or whatever the hell they're calling it in there, the flex, just the whole board got overhauled. It's a lot more playful than it is. It doesn't seem to be as stiff when you get it into tighter trees, which gives you more float and a little bit more maneuverability when you're really zipping through something tighter. It kind of actually helps you in flatter snow or just lower angle pow, especially in the trees. But when you take it into wide open pow, you can really sit on that back foot, elevate that nose, and spray the white wave out the back. It slashes and bashes. The only downside, it's a little more lively, so keep your knees bent. Number 4, the Endeavor Archetype. I've owned a couple of these. There's a reason for it. It's that good. Some people like to complain and say that it's too soft. It's this or it's that. It's a swallowtail. It's designed to be soft so that you can flex it from the center and get the nose up. It's fully functional. It's good enough that when you get on a groomer, you can still rail a carve with it. And if you want to get a little freestyle spicy with it, you can because of that flex. It's got that setback camber with the rocker in the nose. And when you really push into the middle of the board, you can really feel that elevate. On top of the fact, it does have the channel, which I think Endeavor does a better job with the channel than Burton, the people that trademarked and patented it, which is really saying something there. But overall, this is my personal favorite swallowtail. I mean, I own one, but it just doesn't get higher on this list because there are some better options. Number 3, the Salomon Volle fish. Not the deepest swallowtail on here, but it might be the widest. This thing is smooth. Like, you get it up to speed into like some crunchy snow underneath, and it just sort of skips along the top without bucking you. It's very easy to flex into to get that nose to elevate and to just slash in the snow. You do lose a little bit of power off the tail because it is so short. So if you're hoping to get a lot of spring, you're not gonna get that. But by and large, this is probably the most well-rounded on this list because you can kind of just ride a little bit of everything. And while it doesn't excel at any one aspect of powder riding, whether it's steep wide open or flat and tight trees, it gets the job done and it's very approachable. We're about halfway through this video, I think. I don't know where I'm getting edited into at this point, but I need you to go down, give this a thumbs up. And while you're down there, if you haven't already, remember to subscribe, click the bell, get those notifications. That way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for you. Number 2, the Telos Deros. Nothing's really changed from this board from last year. I don't even think the graphic changed, honestly. It's kind of just a carry forward. This is a good deck. Not everyone's gonna have it. Kind of feels like a cross between the Endeavor Archetype and that Volle fish. It's in that category, fully functional swallowtail. It's pretty deep. You can really sit on the back of it. You still get a little bit of spring out of it. The nose is easy to pow butter on, and when you're slashing and spraying, you can really get from the middle of the board back on the tail to throw that up. It's one of those decks that, like I said, not everyone's gonna have, but it's solid. And when you get on a groomer, because you're cutting across the resort from one pow field to another, holds an edge very well, it locks in. You do have a urethane sidewall, so if you do smash into something and it kind of pushes the edge in a little bit, it's a little bit easier to repair than a P-Tex sidewall. Honorable mentions, all great options, but just barely didn't crack the top 5 of this list. The Amplid Snomellier. It only comes in one size. Amplids are a little bit harder to find outside of Europe. This thing floats well. I lasted pow on this thing for like 7 hours straight one day and it never let up. It's a little lacking on really firm, icier conditions in my opinion. Not so much that you're like, oh, it can't do it, just more like, oh, you're kind of on your toes, you're being a little light on your feet. Overall though, It floats exceptionally well. It's very damp. That's the one thing that I would say about it, is that it's very damp. The Stranda Tree Surfer. This thing carves probably the best out of anything on this list. Like, that's really what Strandas are known for. They really turn exceptionally well. It's a little stiffer, and I think some people will be turned off by that because you're gonna spend a lot more effort driving into the center of that camber to get the front of the board to elevate. You're gonna just put a little bit more work into it. It does have a really good shape though for crust busting. You will be able to push that snow out of the way if it's heavier or chunkier. Urethane sidewalls, again, with a little bit of traction tech in there so that it does help grip, which also goes into how well it actually carves. And finally, we have the Nitro 203 BBC, not the 179, the 203. The big black cannon. It's big, it's black, it's swallowtail. It's probably actually the softest deck on this list. For a 203, it rides more like a 160-ish, maybe a 159, somewhere in that range. You get a lot of flap in that nose. It's more of a novelty than anything, but if you get it out on a really deep day, you're gonna have a great time. Like I said, all great options, but just barely didn't crack the top 5 of this list. Like what we're doing over here? Want to support us further? Swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. And the number 1 Swallowtail for 2025 is the Borealis Leviathan. When I got on this board, I didn't want to get off this board. This is the quintessential setback camber swallowtail, in my opinion. That's why we're just putting it back on the list again this year. You want something that not everyone's gonna have, that you can ride in deep days, you can crush a groomer if you have to when you're cutting around the resort trying to find pow. Even for its size, it's still nimble enough in the trees, depending on whether you're in low angle, medium angle, or high angle. It does everything you want. It's easy to repair because of that urethane sidewall. It's got a decent structure on the base. Overall, I had a blast on this thing. It's got a ton of pop out of the rear, which with some swallowtails, because of that cutout, you lose that power. This, nope, it's still there. You get a ton of snap, so when you want to blast a side hit, go for it. And remember to poke out that grab when you do it. Looks way better. That's why we're just keeping this at number 1. This has been our top 5 swallowtails for 2025. If you're thinking about buying one of these, go check out one of the reviews. Watch it. You know you want to. Do it now.